Economics is very brutal. You defy the laws, you pay a price. We're paying the price right now.
So today we're discussing the economy. Botswana has entered very, very muddy waters in terms of where we are with the state of the economy. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that we are really, really in new uncharted waters. So to discuss this, I'm bringing you one of the prominent economic specialists or economists in Botswana, Sennye Obuseng.
Radumela.
And welcome to GrowthWell.
Thank you very much. You're doing a wonderful job here.
Botswana has never been in this state. Do we have to worry?
Absolutely. We're in a very bad place. I hate to say it, but we're in a very bad place. That last year we suffered a recession, 3%. The economy contracted 3% in 2024. Revised projections now tell us the economy will contract 0.4%, which I believe is optimistic. So we're looking at a second year of recession. Now there are consequences. You lose jobs, businesses close, you become less attractive to investors. The government struggles with revenue. We're in a very bad place. So the government really is struggling to pay public servants. And the consequences were the government to fail to pay public servants are dire.
So the very high unemployment rates of whatever, 27% for youth, 38%.
Yes.
That's going to get worse. I mean, it's horrific to think.
To get worse.
Unless something drastic happens.
Something drastic has to happen. So I think those who have managed our economy to date owe us an explanation. How could we get it so wrong?
Welcome to the GrowthWell Podcast, where we tap into a well of knowledge, innovation, and leadership to fuel Africa's growth. Here, we explore thought-provoking insights and expert knowledge that empower individuals and businesses to thrive across the continent. Whether it's personal development or professional advancement, our conversations inspire action and impact. This is GrowthWell, where ideas flow and growth begins. Let's dive in.
Welcome to GrowthWell Podcast, the GrowthWell family. Always great to catch up. Now, one time in 1992, during the heat of the United States presidential elections, an aide for Bill Clinton was asked, what is the most important thing for these elections? And he went and said, the economy is stupid. Now we know governments have been taken out simply because the impact on the pocket. So today we're discussing the economy. Botswana has entered very, very muddy waters, unprecedented times in terms of where we are with the state of the economy. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that we are really, really in new uncharted waters. So to discuss this, I'm bringing you one of the prominent economic specialists or economists in Botswana, Sennye Obuseng.
Radumela.
And welcome to GrowthWell.
Thank you very much. You're doing a wonderful job here.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I follow the podcast quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, great stuff. I like your hat.
Thank you.
I hope it doesn't talk about your political affiliations.
No, not at all.
You're just looking good.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, before we start, good people, a good chunk of you are watching episode after episode, but you're not subscribing. We want you to subscribe, and please, I promise you, we'll bring you big hitters months to come. So for your support, please just press the subscribe button and then we'll get going. Clear? Got you there. Sennye, first, just for the audience to know who you are, if you can just take us through who, outside your development economics type stuff, or who is Obuseng, and after that you can just take us through your...
Well, Sennye Obuseng is a Motalaote from Madinare. Ke Binapilo. Motalaote from Madinare.
So alebelega kwasho?
Ke khatala. Fully assimilated.
Fully assimilated to Central.
So really I grew up in Madinare. And I left Madinari at age 18 after completing my O-levels to start my tertiary education. And I haven't quite lived in Madinari since then. Madinari is a place I visit.
Oh, okay.
But really, I spent most of my time in Gaborone. This is where I started working in 1992 as an academic. I studied economics, and then I was immediately recruited by the University of Botswana to start teaching economics, or at least preparing to teach economics. And I spent very little time there, actually, only 8 years.
At university?
At University of Botswana. And I left for UNDP, where I spent 14 years as an economist, but really more as a development professional, because I started looking at things from multiple dimensions. Worked on health. My first job there was to lead the preparation of, I would call it a seminar report in 2000 that we called towards an AIDS-free generation. It was pretty impactful, actually won an award within UNDP. Worked on governance, worked on environment, even ICT, So I broadened my scope.
As an economist, but in different spaces.
Absolutely. So I spent 14 years there. In 2014, I left and I started working as an independent consultant. So now I do policy work, policy and strategy work, basically. I guess we're more or less in the same space.
Yeah, you've joined our territory.
Yes, but I don't do it as well as you.
Yeah.
So that's me, basically. I'm also a politician.
Okay.
I'm a politician, a reluctant politician, I must say.
Tell us more about the reluctant part.
Well, I was drawn into politics by friends in 2014, actually. 2014. I was brought in into the Botswana Congress Party. And then it was after 2014. It was joining the UDC. And I've been with the Botswana Congress Party since then. I've gone through everything that it went through with UDC all the way up to the party. Stood for elections in 2024 and lost.
That's last year.
That's last year.
Are you still licking your wounds?
I don't know. I wasn't. The loss didn't hurt me as much as it hurt those who supported me. Okay. But I'm licking my wounds in a way. But I'm not blaming anybody.
That's the game. That's the nature of the beast. You guys are ready for such games.
That's the nature of the beast. My type doesn't do well in elections, I'm told. Because we tend to rationalize things a lot. Politicians are very practical, natural politicians. They say what people need to hear, rather what people want to hear. And those who want to be rational struggle. And I guess that's why I struggle a lot in politics. But I did well. I lost by a margin of 38.
Wow, that was tight.
Yeah, that was tight.
Yeah. Whilst we are still on politics, talking about this rational thinking plus the robust politician, because do you think that has affected the quality of leadership? And us as voters, obviously, we want the brightest, visionary type leaders who are hopeful and rational. Is that aspect actually affected the quality of leaders that we have generally in Africa, apart from just Botswana?
Oh yes,
I can think of some bombastic examples in South Africa.
Yeah, no, people like you and I look for the kind of leaders you are describing. But the political market is a lot more complex than that. It's a place where reason has little room, to thrive. It's a place where sound bites work, slogans. where people who succeed are those who appeal more to emotion than reason. So if you don't connect with people emotionally, you'll struggle. If you don't tell them what they want to hear, you'll struggle. Your typical demagogue will promise them heaven and earth, and they'll believe him or her. I think we've gone through that in Botswana. And that's the problem, really, because those who want to tackle issues with a fair degree of honesty, most of the time don't have much appeal. But if you go out and you tell them, we'll give you that, this and that, they listen.
They buy it.
They buy it.
They buy it.
And your properly equipped, properly resourced politician is not the type that will do that. And that's why they struggle. But it's a cycle, as they say. Every cycle, people learn. Hopefully, with the last cycle, they've learned something. That look for more beyond what your politician tells you. Dig below the surface and find reason to vote. In the last election, even educated people were irrational.
They were irrational.
They were irrational. They all wanted change. It was just change for the sake of change. Yeah.
Good. We'll have time for the politics of the day. Yes. Now, we're here to talk economics and Botswana's state of affairs. But before we go into that, I'd just like to share some light moments. And I'd like to share with readers some of the one statistic, which actually, I have a strong belief, Sennye, in Africa in general, we tend to look for everything in the West, especially on the psychosocial front. In other words, those things that matter for people to be happier. So I came across the statistics. The study was done by these anthropologists in the US, where they are studying the ancient ways of Africans to see whether they can pick some things. So there's this tribe, which is still hunter-gatherer in Tanzania. It's called the Hadza tribe. So when they did to compare the level of happiness of the Hadza tribe, these are people who are still living like the way we were living 100 years ago. They've been they haven't been contaminated by modernization and civilization. And they found that when they did assessment, I don't know how accurate it is, but they found that they're actually 50% happier than the Americans, which totally shocked them. How can people who still don't have full clothes, who still don't have, but they are actually very happy. One thing that really interested me was they asked them, do they exercise? And they said, what is exercise? Because for them, they are always physical every day, which is healthy.
Absolutely.
They are very communal in terms of the spirit of connection within family and together and all that type of thing, which obviously in something that we're adopting as Botswana in terms of this hyper-individualism and walking away from family, from community and that type of thing. And I found it quite interesting that my take is that we also need to go back and pick up the good things from our ancestors that we can use. And I thought this Hadza thing was quite interesting. It was very interesting. So I just wanted to find out from you, say from a happiness and, losing election with such a close margin, what keeps your lights on in terms of just keeping your spirits and your determination in terms of what you want to achieve?
Well, reading is part of the menu that keeps me engaged. But I'm a very communal person too. And I suppose that's what should come first. Because I have two families, in a manner of speaking. I have a family in Muchudi, where my wife comes from.
Your in-laws.
My in-laws.
Irra.
And I have a small holding there, where I keep some livestock, more or less subsistence. I do piggery, chicken, goats, at a subsistence level. But it's a place that refreshes me quite a bit because I get to interact with nature quite a bit. I also get to meet the family that my wife introduced to me.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Madinari, where my clan is. Aha. So when I'm over there, I'm really at peace. I'm really at peace. I try as much as possible to go there, mix with my people, the uncles, the extended family.
That's
really
wonderful. That's wonderful.
I'm now being forced into a new area, and that's exercise. My body right now doesn't say I exercise quite a bit.
Why are you looking?
But I'm being forced to go into that area because, we are aging.
Yeah, you're aging.
And the doctors advise us do this, do that. So exercise has now become a big part.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I can tell you that yesterday I did 1 hour, 7 minutes of walking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done, buddy.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, talking about exercise, these Hadza guys, the tribes, and from this anthropological study, they found that they are 14 times more physically active than us.
Yes.
So in terms of, in these tribes, there's no blood pressure, by the way. All these diseases, in those people, these diseases, and they die for other things because they live very risky lives in terms of hunting and stuff like that. But otherwise, blood pressure, heart attack, because they are active. They eat food from the earth. So well done with the exercise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I intend to keep going. Keep it up.
Well
my
done.
body actually is quite responsive. I'm telling you, my metabolism is that good. When I exercise, my body responds. Yeah.
Excellent. Let's get... So, hey, man, it's a in terms of the economy. Botswana are very worried. They've actually been talking to me to say you need to bring some experts on the economy so that we know exactly where we are. As you recall, we did that podcast with Keith last year, where a lot of people were very educated in terms of the state of the economy and the data. And that's what we really like. And you will know, of recent, there was the Public Accounts Committee, where I think it was the Permanent Secretary and the Minister of Finance mentioned when the coffers are running so low. I think, if I remember well, he was saying there's 700 million pula left in the government investment account,
yes,
which is a show of how he was even worried about ability to pay salaries, government salaries.
Yeah.
Botswana has never been in this state.
Absolutely.
That's why these are really unprecedented times. Do we have to worry?
Absolutely. We're in a very bad place. I hate to say it, but we're in a very bad place. The audience will recall that last year we suffered a recession, 3%. The economy contracted 3% in 2024. And in February, when the minister presented his budget, he projected 3.3% growth in 2025.
This year?
Yes, which would have been just enough to take the economy back to where it was in 2023. Revised projections now tell us the economy will contract 0.4%, which I believe is optimistic. Overly optimistic in my view.
0.4%?
Minus 0.4%.
Or minus?
Yes, it will contract minus 0.4%. So we're looking at a second year of recession. Now there are consequences. When an economy suffers 2 years of recession, you lose jobs, big time, businesses close, you become less attractive to investors, the government struggles with revenue because governments make money of businesses that succeed and people who earn incomes and pay tax. So from the perspective of the economy in terms of its own performance, we're in a very bad place. We're also in a very bad place because the fiscus is in a terrible shape. Ours has for a long time been a government and mineral-led economy. Right now, the diamond sector has collapsed. The government's coffers are dry, as you said. When the PS finance, and he's a man who inspires confidence, by the way, I have to say that. When he made that presentation to the Public Accounts Committee, he said he had 700 in the government investment account. He was facing a $2.5 billion wage bill, billion wage bill.
Wage bill, yeah.
Towards the end of the month. So your guess is as good as mine as to how he managed to pay 2.5 billion when he had only 700 million. So the government really is struggling to pay public servants. And the consequences were the government to fail to pay public servants are dire. Commercial banks, they'll tell you that public servants account for 65% of their loan book.
Wow.
So if the government was to default on loan repayments, the entire financial system would be in trouble. That's how bad it is. But it gets worse. The government is struggling to pay suppliers. Now, the way the economy works is that money should circulate. How many are we here? We are about 6. If I had 1 pula and I paid it to you because you provided a service, you paid it to someone else who provided you with a service. We let that 1 pula circulate amongst ourselves. In the economy, it's counted as 6 pula. Just by money circulating, you generate value. When the government fails to pay service providers at the levels at which is failing now, it keeps money out of the economy, and that affects growth, that affects performance. So we are in a very bad shape. The government can't pay suppliers. The government also can't finance basic services. It can't. The government also can't carry out what in economics we call counter-cyclical policy. When the economy is going through a downturn, such as now, you would expect the government to inject money into the economy. But right now, the government is not able to inject money into the economy. In fact, it's keeping money out of the economy because it's unable to pay suppliers. You can look at the statistics all the way to the current account, exports, imports. We are bleeding. We are bleeding because our major revenue earner has always been diamonds. Now, we've lost that. You can go to employment. It's terrible. We are losing jobs. Business closures all around. I was looking
at the very high unemployment rates of whatever, 27% for youth, 38%.
Yes.
That's going to get worse. I mean, it's horrific to think.
To get worse.
Unless something drastically happens.
Something drastic has to happen. Something drastic has to happen. Otherwise, really, the short-term outlook is frightening, too ghastly to contemplate, in my view. And we're looking at the government to dig us out of this hole. Before we
look at what can bring us out of the holes, how do we get the predictions so wrong? And I'm also touching on your political savviness, because sometimes we listen to you carefully. If you put on your political hat for it, there we go for a budget, not ready, and we have to take what we've been told. And then as a businessman, obviously my planning goes along with those predictions of diamond recovery. There's a third quarter or second quarter where it recover. But how do we get it such a huge delta or huge gap? How do you? And you are the economy. We rely on you.
Well, our abilities, insofar as the economy is concerned, are quite often exaggerated because the future is always difficult to predict, quite frankly. But in this instance, everything hinged on what would happen to the diamond industry, the global diamond industry, the natural diamonds industry specifically. All the major institutions, national and global, predicted a recovery in the last quarter of 2025.
Including your IMFs and all that. So it was all in tandem. It was not just the Botswana.
Absolutely. Okay. But some of us looked, remember we had a recession, not a recession, a contraction in the first quarter of 2024. Then we had another one in the second quarter of 2024.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were told, oh, no, we expect 1% growth. Now, if you looked seriously at the depth of the contraction and what caused it, you would have concluded at the time that the recession would be annualized. And that's what some of us said, that we're likely to have an annual recession. And indeed, we had an annual recession, 3%. That's 4 percentage points worse than what was predicted, 1% growth. So I think they got it wrong because they put all their bets on the natural diamonds industry recovery. I don't know how they failed to look at the key variables that would determine whether we had a recovery or not. Number one being what drove the collapse, which is natural diamonds. And
which is the lab-grown diamonds.
Lab-grown diamonds. And with lab-grown diamonds, the technological trends suggested that they would keep getting more and more competitive. Consumer preferences were not favorable. They were shifting away from natural diamonds. In China, a major market, they were not only looking at lab-grown diamonds as a cheaper option, they were also looking at gold as an alternative. In India, another major market, the lab-grown diamonds industry is very strong. And of course, lab-grown diamonds are also being marketed aggressively. There was a time when DBS was very dominant. It was formidable in terms of marketing diamonds. But now they've made their match. And so really in terms of technology, consumer preferences, nothing said the recovery would be forthcoming. And indeed, the recovery didn't come.
The market had a serious shift.
Yeah, it is a structural shift. It's not cyclical at all. So as a country, we've got to adjust to a future in which diamonds will no longer be as important to our lives as they used to be. That's basically the reality we have to face now.
Before I ask you a difficult question about you, economists, how do we have such stability or consistent performance of diamonds in terms of export, in terms of forex over 80%, percentage GDP of whatever 26-30%. So since you guys have presented the numbers, and would you think we sat on our laurels in that comfort zone?
We did, and that's the curse of all natural resource-driven economies. Maybe not all. They call it the Dutch disease. You depend on this dominant, very productive sector. You live off its performance, and you neglect other sectors of the economy. I think Botswana has suffered that curse. We've not been able to do what the likes of the UAE have done, which is to turn natural capital into alternative forms of capital. We've done a very bad job of it. Our education system, our health system, our non-mining sector, they don't tell a story of a nation that has had a very bounteous resource that gave, it so much. We failed to convert natural capital into alternatives. You look at all the statistics that matter. Competitiveness, we are nowhere. Human capital development, we are nowhere. The least we could have done is invest seriously in human capital. We haven't. We pumped a lot of money into education, but we didn't get the results. Pumped a lot of money into health. We didn't get the results. We infrastructure, you look at it, we could have done a lot better with what we have. I mean, you look at Rwanda, they've never had what we have. But you get into Kigali and so on, you look at what they have, you can see that there's progress here. So I think those who have managed our economy to date owe us an explanation. How could we get it so wrong?
One expert in South Africa, which I believed, was that a governance framework for sustainability, it's a collection of expertise from different directions.
Yes.
In other words, there's the academic block, people like yourself. There is the which is like the intelligentsia. There is the activists in the almost NGO space. Okay. Then in a developing country like this, then you have your international agencies, your UNDPs, your World Bank, and so forth. From economy point of view, maybe social, in a country like South Africa, then they'll talk about the religious spiritual type block that has its voice in how the social economy should take place. So my question is, first, where was the intelligentsia? These are people like yourselves, the super doctors and professors from University of Botswana and all the fancy universities that you guys, and all the political scientists and so forth. And then, where you worked? Where was the UN and everybody when this happened? Because, Sennye, we grew up in this thing. It is not known that it's a risk. We've had diversification in every budget speech.
Absolutely.
So it's not for lack of wanting. I don't know if I'm putting it correctly. It's not for lack of wanting. So how does the whole system not perform like this? I don't know if it's a clear question.
Yeah, no, it's clear.
Hey.
The academics were there. The professionals in government were there. Within the
technocrats,
the development advisory services community, they were there. Politicians don't listen. They don't do a very good job of listening. If you look
and you speak being one yourself.
Yes. if you look at successive IMF reports, World Bank reports, advisory reports to Botswana, they've been consistent on a lot of things. Diversification, as you know. The public sector wage bill, which is now a threat to government and the economy as we speak. Because it's huge.
And predictable huge. Every month. You got to pay those people.
Absolutely. Yes. The experts will provide advice. They do provide advice, but the politicians don't do a very good job of listening. They are short-termist. They make their decisions according to the political cycle. Development requires leaders to think beyond 5 years. If you're really going to transform society, you shouldn't think in terms of 5 years. But it gets worse. in Botswana, as in many others, the government as an institution, if I may call it that, became extractive. Extractive in the sense that its mandate shifted progressively from serving the public to serving the political class. Rent-seeking, So when you have extractive institutions, you can't build. You can't build prosperity for all. It becomes a zone to which we pay lip service, but in reality, the political class, that will be the politicians, the top public servants, and so on, for the most part, they repurpose government to serve their interests. We've got extractive institutions here. That's why we've kept upwards of 60 state-owned enterprises, very few of which have a business case to stand on. But we've kept them. They are parasites, leeching off the state, leeching off the taxpayer. That's who they are. That's what they are. But we've kept them because, we've got functionaries that should work there and so on. I can tell you, even today, we will create more parastatals. Oh, yes, we will. Oh, yes, we will. Oh, yes, we will. And that's the tragedy, really. Because had the state not become as extractive as it had been, as it had become, we would probably have taken we would probably have made a lot of the investments that we ought to have made to transform society. We would also have taken the hard decisions that we needed to take to put ourselves on a path of sustainability. Look, only in October, was it December, with the financial situation as difficult as it is, we put 1.4 billion on a road from Khanzi to Nyukati. I don't know how many cars travel on that road on a good day, but I can tell you, for the most part, it's a white elephant.
It's been tarmac.
Absolutely. Now, that's what politicians do. They make their decisions to a large extent to get votes. They don't look at return on investment as you would in business. When they are confronted with difficult constraints, such as those we have now, their natural instinct is to ignore them. Instead of adjusting to the constraints that they are facing, tight budgetary constraints and so on, they might resort to borrowing. Dig a hole within an already deep hole, and we sink further. So I want to believe that we are here for the most part because for a very long time, the politicians did not listen. Keith Jeffrey would say they kicked the can down the road. We postponed difficult decisions that we had to make. And here we are. Yeah.
No, I'm trying to, where you want to ask a question, but you also at the same time. How, because I don't want us to paint a very dire picture or a causes of a dire picture without a solution. Or how do we, I've read the book Why Nations Fail, which talked about extractives by James Robinson. And yes, I've read that book some years back. Yeah. And, it's very difficult to be reading that book in conjunction to what's happening in Botswana. That's a painful, that's a painful thing. And I know in South Africa, there's been debate that is also teetering on being a failed state. So even our neighbor is not sitting very well. So that's why I want to, where do we get? Do we need is it time for a benevolent dictator who has a long term? I mean, I'm comparing here to
Rwanda,
to Singapore, Rwanda,
Malaysia.
even your UAE,
Yes.
where the guys knew what they will be around and they take long term. But how do we? And also there are a lot of questions around the Westminster democratic setup. I know I'm comfortable in this because you are partly a politician. I know it's not strictly economist type stuff. How do we solve this short-term mentality where mainly men are desperate to stay in power for another year, another 5 years, another 5 years at the expense? I mean, that's what extractive is all about. You actually don't have the interest of your people at heart. It has to serve you first, even if you are prepared to let them suffer, like Mabutu did. I mean, how the hell do we get through this?
This thing called leadership is fundamentally about character. It's not the model of governance that you adopt that makes the big difference. It's the character of the leader. Nations succeed to a very large extent because leaders have the right focus. Leaders make the right choices. If you listen to Lee Kuan Yew, talking about Singapore and so on, he was very clear. It was about a vision of what Singapore had to become. And he built the institutions that would deliver that vision. People say he was a dictator. Yes, he was, I think. But they did have elections every now and then. But he still delivered, a prosperous Singapore. Same with Mahathir Mohamad.
In Malaysia.
In Malaysia and so on. So the solution really is not so much dictatorship as it is leadership.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem we have had.
We haven't been blessed.
No, we haven't been blessed with leaders. When the tone is set right, institutions align. If the primary instinct of the leader is to get rich, you get extractive institutions. The extractive institutions that Robinson and Acemoglu talk about. If the instinct is right, whether you are democratic or a dictatorship, you will get a Paul Kagame. Yes. Because when people talk about benevolent dictatorships and they cite Paul Kagame and so on, I say to them, look at what they did in that tiny island called Mauritius. They didn't have dictators. They were Democrats. But they built a successful economy out of nothing in terms of resources. Yeah, so our problem here is that we didn't have the type of leader that would turn the good fortune that God gave us, into sustainable prosperity, sustainable and inclusive prosperity. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm not about to endorse dictatorship. No.
No, absolutely. I think I agree with you. Partly. Partly, I mean, leaders have to make. It depends on. Maybe it's a bit of semantics, but what's got to be done is got to be done.
Absolutely.
Irrespective. When you're a leader, what's got to be done is got to be done, irrespective of what the public. A leader has to lead.
Absolutely.
Painfully. And I feel our leaders don't have the steely commitment to the elevation of the electorate that are not able to say, actually, it's okay to lose elections, but this is
what has to happen.
You're with me?
Yes.
That's where I say you got to be forceful on the things that you solely believe are going to transform the economy and go for them.
Absolutely.
Even if you say, in 3 years I might be out.
Yes.
But, I did consciousness leading.
Absolutely. You lay a platform for the next person. But guess what? One of the things that the type of leaders we're talking about here are able to do is to persuade people to take painful medicine when it's necessary.
Yeah.
Those who fake it, who fake leadership, can't do that. They can't expend effort explaining to people that the circumstances we are in require us to take a bit of pain. So we postpone.
Like the bloated civil service.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just on the face of everybody that this is unaffordable.
Yes.
And we know that. I mean,
Yes.
I've seen statistics in terms of how bloated it is relative to similar economies.
Yes.
What we have in terms of productivity per person in the public service, where we are very unproductive.
Absolutely.
But we've had, years and years where that is a good example.
The IMF, they have something that they call Article 4 consultations. They repeat it all the time. This is a ticking time bomb. It's a pity it explodes now after a change of government. It's a pity. But it was always coming. We saw it coming. We are told that it's coming. And we turned a blind eye to it. And what people also forget is that these things have displacement effects. We're talking about productivity being low in the public sector. It has a bearing on what happens in the rest of the economy. In fact, the government, as we speak, is one of the key sources of our underperformance as an economy. Government efficiency. Government is failing on basic things, very basic things. And that's even before we're talking about these budget difficulties. Building permit, 4 months, 6 months. How do you build an economy that way? You can't. So I want to believe that this leadership thing that failed in South Africa is failing here. That's basically because the politicians prioritize their interests above all else. I mean, look at what we did after October, immediately after October. We had an opportunity to say, we're not nominating councillors, those who come in by special nomination. We had an opportunity to do that. We could have appointed maybe the few that we need in Swatown. And elsewhere, no, there's no money. The last government had 122. We went
Specially elected members.
Specially elected councillors.
Yeah, just because we have listeners outside Botswana, just define what are those and the dispensation of
those are councillors that are nominated by the Minister of Local Government.
They have not won elections.
They have not won elections, but we increased them to 153. He started with 122. It was a huge battle within the coalition, the ruling coalition. My people are not there. My people are not there. And we pushed it to 153.
Oh, it's higher than what it used to be.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
I wasn't aware.
We pushed it to 153. So these are some of the things that tell you that sometimes it's not the technocrats that fail. It's more the political class. I know that people think, it's the technocrats. Yes, they have their role. But for the most part, the technocrats will adapt. If the leadership is right, technocrats can be fired when they don't have what you do at your firm. They can
don't perform. Yeah,
they don't perform. You replace them
out of the door.
Yes. So the political class must get its act together. Provide direction, consequential management, build institutions that serve, then we'll have a chance.
It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better before we try to now get from you what key levers of policy that we need to pull. But there's another element. Now comes Trump coming with his old tariffs and implications and Now we're talking 37%, which I understand might kick in end of July from the normal 10% that has been there for Botswana. So that just becomes a double whammy in terms of the impact on the economy. Can you just talk about what this means to Botswana? And we just had the president and his entourage who went to the jewelry, the JCK, with all the push for natural diamonds. But at the same time, I understand, President Duma wants to engage Donald Trump around these specific tariff issues. Is that, yeah?
Well, good luck to the president. But I'm not sure he will have an audience with Trump, to be honest with you. We are too small. We are too small in the broader scheme of things. The big guys are struggling to engage Trump on this matter. So I'm not optimistic about a negotiated agreement with the US. I'm not optimistic about it at all. Small countries get heard only at multilateral forums, WTO and so on. Forums that are organized
and consensus-based.
Absolutely.
Type,
Absolutely. That's where we get to be heard. So bilateral, good luck to Mr. President. I mean, if he succeeds, I'll be the first to clap. And when I say succeeds, I mean getting an audience. Yeah. But the truth is, it's going to be a problem because the American consumer is going to find our diamonds a lot more expensive than normal. You were giving me the statistics before we came here that 99.6% or so of our exports to the US are diamonds. I think it's about $4.6 million in 460.
Yeah, $460 million. Correct. Excluding the ones that come through other countries. These are the direct, the ones exposed to 37%.
Yeah. So that quantum is going to respond to these tariffs in a negative way. The way a demand responds to price increase, 37% is a huge deal. But there are other avenues through which it's going to hit us. Because these tariffs are not localized. They are global. Trump has imposed tariffs on virtually every economy around the world. So the global economy is likely to lose a few percentage points of growth. It will underperform.
Global GDP growth.
Global GDP. As an open economy, we need a healthy world economy because that's where our exports are bought. That's where the demand comes from. What he has done will also affect global supply chains because remember, imports are not just finished goods. We also import inputs. So all of a sudden, production systems around the world are going to have to be reorganized. So inputs are going to get expensive. We're going to have a lot of uncertainty. Of course, which is even more frightening from my point of view. What Trump has done in one stroke is collapse multilateralism and global governance at the functional level. That's what he's done. So WTO, where we used to gather to try to get order around the world economy, negotiate and agree on the best way to do things, WTO has just been defanged by Trump. It's been defanged. It's toothless now. That's where we are. That hurts global trade. That hurts global investment. We now have trade wars. Trump is fighting with Canada. He's fighting with China. He's fighting with Europe. Trade wars have no winners. They never have winners. The US economy will pay a price. Every single economy in the world will pay a price because of Trump's trade wars. And we will feel the secondary effects as well as the direct effects as Botswana. So it's a dark moment really for the world. And we haven't even spoken about the uncertainty of it all. Yeah.
But it will just add salt to the wound.
Absolutely. It's not helping at all. It's not helping at all.
Sure. So in terms of, from a Botswana and African perspective, there is the, and I think I told you before we came here that if you look at China, with whatever 1.4 billion people, India about the same, Africa with 55 countries about the same thing. And unfortunately, we've been divided into these 55 countries. But if you look at the potential of the economy, there is a plus in terms we've got a lot of catching up to do. We've got a lot of infrastructure. We've got even technologies that can make us catch up faster, like AI and blockchain and all those type of things. Now, we've got the Africa Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Agreement. We've got Yosaku, we've got this. And then, as I told you earlier, last year I drove through Kazungula border. I was looking forward to, a fancy bridge, one-stop shop for, and then nice building, Botswana on one side, Zambia on one side. I have to be honest, Botswana was smooth, maybe because Botswana is smooth. I went to the Zambia side. There was absolutely no traffic. And we spent 1.5 hours.
1.5 hours.
Going through so much paperwork, so many taxes, road tax, insurance tax, Interpol, this. And then I had to sit by a computer and do some test about the car. And how do these countries are small. Zambia, Botswana, relatively are very small.
Yes.
So I just want to say, from a Botswana and integration, how do we sort out this where we've got AU, we've got SADC, but we actually, Rona as citizens, we don't see the impact of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say that I'm very optimistic about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. It holds a lot of promise, but a lot has to be done for that promise to be realized. 55 countries, we're talking about a very fragmented market. Fragmented in terms of infrastructure, connectivity, connecting infrastructure. Fragmented in terms of policies, the type of stuff that we're talking about here. So what is required is for Africa to start speaking the language of policy harmonization. Big time. It's a shame that within SADC, we haven't got it right. Just SADC. Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, we should be doing these things bilaterally and getting them right bilaterally. So we have to seriously talk about harmonizing policies. But as is so often the case with things that are driven by politicians, it will take ages for these small things to be done. Then we have to think seriously about regional public goods, infrastructure that connects countries and so on. The Kazungula Bridge, in principle, is a marvelous investment. It's a marvelous. Now, it's being frustrated by bureaucracy. Its impact is being nullified by bureaucracy. No queues and you spend 1.5 hours. What for? Right? You look at the Tlokwen border, you do things much faster. Oh, maybe I'm getting it wrong. The trucks are piling up.
Yeah.
Or has things
even
changed?
No. I saw them at the Lobatse border.
Yes.
Yeah, kilometers of...
Exactly. So really, there is much that we need to do to realize the potential of AfTA, the regulatory reforms, so that we turn Africa into the common market that the agreement wants it to be. And then, of course, infrastructure. The infrastructure gap in Africa is huge.
Trillions of dollars.
Trillions of dollars. And it's stealing opportunities for Africans. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it boils down to political will, what our people are able to do, our leaders are able to do. And a lot of these things, I tell you, can be done bilaterally. Zambia and Botswana can fix. What is Zambia gaining out of this 1.5 hours, that one person spends there when there's no... Those taxes are not worth what they would gain from the free flow of goods.
Of goods and traffic.
Yeah.
So there is the tariffs, there is the fiscus, there is the diamond market. Now, if you had let's say not Minister of Finance or a PS or whatever, if you were in the chair, what would be your what would be your short to medium doses of things that you would do if you say, Minister Sennye, we've got all these things, you've laid down the problem statement, and now you are told what would be the key levers from a policy perspective that within 6 months to a year we should start seeing?
Well, unfortunately, when things are bad, the options are few. I think the first order of business for Boko as president and Kgaolate as Minister of Finance, not as Vice President this time, as Minister of Finance, in my view, would have been to stabilize the fiscus. Because you don't want to see what would happen when government starts defaulting on its obligations. You don't want that to happen. So that would have been the first order of business. And that means recognizing the constraints you are facing. You don't make any expenditure commitments that you shouldn't make. You don't make any promises that you shouldn't make. You stabilize. I give the president full marks for his emphasis on investment. That is the way to go. The money we need to save health, education, infrastructure, jobs, and so on is not available in government. Thankfully, a lot of things that we need done can be done with private sector money. So on investment, I'm with him 100%.
Okay.
We've got to turn this economy into a private sector-led economy like yesterday. There was a time when we were doing it almost as a matter of choice, but now we have to do it as a matter of necessity. Because whether it's education or health or infrastructure, hard infrastructure and so on, the money, the resources we need are not available in government. The private sector, we've got to find a way of getting the private sector in. That means we've got to deal with this other thing that we've been talking about for ages, the environment for doing business, the investment climate. Investors, entrepreneurs, they respond to incentives. And right now, at many levels, Botswana is not that attractive. So we've got to attend to the business environment, start looking at all those indicators that the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, and others have long defined that Rwanda has used very well to reform. Mauritius uses very well to reform. Start addressing these little things. There are many of them. I don't want to mention them here. Then there is this whole matter of how government positions itself vis-a-vis those it wants to come here and partner with it in developing Botswana. And for me, my greatest worry right now is that the government is not getting it right on messaging. We have too much of what I call policy discordance.
Mm-hmm.
One part of government saying one thing, another part of government saying another thing. The written policy says this. Significant people in government take the stage and they say something to the contrary. Let me give you an example. February, the Minister of Finance says, good people, we are seriously constrained resource-wise. We don't have money. 24 billion Pula budget deficit in 2024, that's not ours, but we inherited it. A budget with a 22 billion Pula deficit in 2025. That's the budget he was presenting.
Yes, yeah.
He had a planned deficit of 22 billion. You don't have many degrees of freedom there. You don't have much room for maneuver. So he says fiscal consolidation is going to be a priority, which basically means that we've got to try to stabilize government finances. That's what we're going to try to do. And he lays down a rule. If we are going to increase expenditure, whether it's a new project or whatever, if we're going to increase expenditure, there's got to be a corresponding reduction in expenditure somewhere else.
On the other side.
Or an increase in revenue somewhere else. In short, if we want to spend money on something, we've got to answer the question, how do we finance it? He laid that rule.
Which made sense.
Makes a lot of
sense. And that's part of the stabilization.
Absolutely. What did the government then do? Spending spree. Commitments. As we sit here now, tertiary education students are waiting for 2,500. Ipelegen 2,500. VDCs 2,500. What magic can Gaulate and Khanezano possibly play to make that real? You look at a lot of other things. So the government has got to be consistent in its messaging. The 4,000 Pula minimum wage. I call it a minimum wage because in effect, that's what it is, the way they conceptualized it. It's clear to all that we don't have an economy that can sustain a 4,000 Pula minimum wage. Trying to play tricks to get it to work in government is all theater. Really, it's all theater. At the end of the day, we need an economy that can sustain this 4,000, and we don't have it. Now,
simple as that. It's just not there.
Yes, we are putting needless pressure on business, and it's not just you doing business here who are looking. It's also those who are looking in from outside, who are saying, but how do these guys commit to such a policy measure when they clearly can't afford it? The optics are wrong. Investors are sensitive to these things. If the credibility of what government says is doubtful, you can bet people will give you a wide berth. So the president's focus on investment, which is correct in my view, is at the end of the day undermined by commitment to political objectives that clearly are unattainable. It would take the first order of business for this government after sitting in office for a few days ought to have been, good people, we want to lay it down before you as it is. We promised 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the reality we are confronted with. We are going to have to readjust. Yeah. So policy discordance is lethal because those who risk their money want to be certain that government means what it says. They also want to be sure.
Can I challenge you there?
Yes, sir.
And this is from because I've read somewhere about, universal, I can't remember what it's called, where you give people money to address inequality. And I'm trying to...
Basic income grant or something like that.
Yeah, which is universal, where you try not do things for people, but to alleviate, you and I talked about the corrosiveness of inequality. So I'm trying to read in there, could it be that irrespective of the dangerous situation you are sitting with the economy, but having the people at the bottom being put at a certain level is sort of cushions and addresses inequality, albeit the economic challenges of the day. I'm not sure if you get me.
I get you.
I'm trying to visit whether there is actually a case that you are not affair to. Yes. And why there will be insistence on doing it, because those are bright guys.
Yes. No, the raising the minimum wage, paying a basic income grant, all those are good things. But you can't afford not to deal with the reality that they have got to be financed at the end of the day. I was in Sierra Leone in 2014. And a few days after I landed, I went into a meeting in government where they were discussing a basic income grant. The government was proposing $30 a month. I can't remember how much that would have been in dollars at the time.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, $30 a month. There was a young lady here, a social protection specialist from the World Bank, who asked pointed questions. How do you fund it? Yeah. At the end of the day, at the end of it all, $30 became $5. $5 a month from $30 as the basic income grant. I don't know if it became policy. The point I'm trying to make is our desires have got to match our capacity.
Okay.
Now, in the case of the minimum wage, the welfare floor, the overall welfare floor is not an issue. The basic income grant is not an issue for them. We're talking about a minimum wage. Can your average business sustain 1,500? I mean, sorry, 4,000.
4,000 pula.
No. You're moving from 1,500 to 4,000 pula. You can't. Now we are playing tricks here. So my view is all these things are okay as aspirational goals, but we build towards them. You don't just mandate them.
There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the aspirations.
Absolutely.
That you don't have an issue with.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. In fact, I'm a proponent of the basic income grant.
Gotcha.
Yes. But we've got to understand that we've got to get the sequence right. First, we need an economy that can sustain that.
Yeah.
If you can't sustain it, why do it?
Yeah, you'll lose everything.
You lose everything.
Losing everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, you're just summarizing for me those short-term levers which you said the Boko and Khaolate governments have done well around stabilizing, but then the problem is the messaging that has been contradictory coming from different government departments. What about if we go into with whatever 27% current debt? Yeah. Can it go? Can we borrow more? Is there room to borrow?
First, let me just say on fiscal consolidation, Khaolate and the rest of government don't seem to be on the same page. Because what he said in February is not what government is doing.
At the budget speech.
Yeah, what he said, fiscal consolidation and so on, so far it's not happening. So that's the discordance that I'm talking about. Well, one example. Yes. Now, debt. We have a debt. We have a budget sustainability framework. The IMF provides one.
They've got the rules, yeah.
Yes. Ours is a lot more stricter than that of the IMF, what the IMF proposes. In terms of our budget sustainability framework, we want debt to be limited to domestic debt, 20% of GDP. Foreign debt, 20% of GDP, for a total of 40% of debt. So in principle, if we are at 27% now, we still have room to borrow. But I'm sure you can tell that the 13% that we have is not much room. The problem here is not so much that we are not at 40%, but rather the momentum, behind the debt. Debt is rising fast. We will get to 40% very quickly. Looking at the IMF framework and what other countries, and rather where other countries are, Namibia over 60%.
60%?
Yes. South Africa, the same thing, and so on. Well, I'm not sure if Namibia is 56, but they are all way over the 40% that we've set ourselves.
Yeah.
So there are some who will say, let's raise the debt ceiling. But there are consequences. Because before you know it, too much of your budget will be going to debt service, principal and interest, right? So to give you a quick answer, we don't have much room to borrow. We don't have much room to borrow. And if we are to exhaust the little room that we have, we've got to worry a lot about what we are borrowing to spend on. It can be roles like Khanzi and many other projects that we call investments that in reality are consumption. We've had many years of investment in what, in my view, amounts to social infrastructure. Yes. When the money is there, no problem. Gaddafi did it, the Arabs do it, the money is there. But right now, the money is not there. So we've got to prioritize what we spend on. Tighten project appraisal big time, so that for every project that we invest in, we are clear on what the expected rate of return is and whether it makes sense to proceed with those kinds of projects. So yes, we can borrow, but we shouldn't be borrowing to sustain a budget that expands grants. Unproductive expenditure. We shouldn't be doing that.
Great stuff. Let's look at the longer term. You've elucidated on what can be done in the short term to address the current burning platform. Now, Botswana we always have to try to be futuristic, but especially with the lessons from the past, which we've talked about, the Botswana of the 30 years. What would you think the planners in the Ministry of Finance and everybody else in terms of how do we learn from this and position Botswana of going back to the glory or even better days in 5 to 10 years' time? What should we be looking at? Obviously, big assumptions that we'll get out of this.
Yes.
With the assumption that after short to medium, we get Botswana to maybe to 2023 type levels. And now because sometimes we say even the 2008 financial crisis was too short for Botswana to get the message. So what message should we get from here, and how do we now take Botswana forward?
Well, I think it's the same old message. It's the same old message. Transformation. The economy has to be transformed. As part of that consideration, we have got to be sensitive to what the discipline of economics tells us in terms of the management of our finances. Economics is very brutal. you defy the laws, you pay a price. We're paying the price right now. So from now going forward, the politicians have got to be a lot less prescriptive.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give a lot more room to technocrats to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
The Minister of Finance doesn't have to be the brightest economist in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He's a politician. His job is to open space for the technocrats to provide the best advice they can give. We've got to learn to execute. Part of Botswana's problem, a big part of Botswana's problem, is that we don't execute. We make decisions and then we sit back and do nothing. Doing business reforms should now be very advanced.
Mm-hmm.
We have barely moved. I've had the opportunity to look at the, what do you call it now? The chart, what do you call it now? The dashboard,
Mm-hmm.
the doing business dashboard.
Mm.
It's red.
For Botswana.
Oh, yes.
It's still red. It's
not-
been red, yeah.
It's not like people don't see it. They see it, nothing happens. As the president speaks about investment right now, he's got to have his dashboard of the reforms that are necessary to make
Those reds green.
those reds green so that he gets the investment that he has
To
promised us.
attract investment, yeah.
He said in 3 years, Botswana will be very different. For the sake of this country, I hope he's right, and I hope he gets it right. But at the rate we are going, I'm not very optimistic because the institutions of government, the instinct of government as I read it from afar, is not aligned with his pursuit of a surge in investment. Not at all. The behavior around policy is not consistent. I mean, when you say you are going to award tenders as president, that's scary. To business, it's scary. It's scary. So these are the type of things
Irrespective of the goodwill connotations of efficiency.
No, it's not even that. I mean, direct appointment has a history in procurement, not just in Botswana. In procurement, it's called single source procurement. You know, in the language of some
The supply
institutions.
chain, yeah.
In the ranking of procurement methods in terms of integrity, value for money, and so on, it ranks at the bottom. It ranks at the bottom. And if you're an investor looking in, that's a red flag because some of the investors obviously will be doing business with government. No two ways about it. Yeah. So I think a big part of the lessons that we have to internalize will be governance. Governance is everything. And I think Boko is smart enough to appreciate that, and he should appreciate that and move decisively in that direction.
I like what you said around that there is an economics textbook. And if we just have to stick to it, and the politicians need to be committed to stick to it. And that in itself, allowing the technocrats to do their job,
Yes.
it might just the medicine we need. Because in other words, the strategies of economic reforms under different circumstances, they are not rocket science. Is that what you're saying?
No. But there's always room. I don't want to be understood to be saying there's a rigid framework that we must follow.
Yeah.
There's always plenty of room for policy enterprise. In fact, we need an enterprise in government right now. But enterprise in government doesn't mean reckless. Enterprise in government doesn't mean throwing the rule book out through the window. When they talk neoclassical economics, I heard the president using that word, and so on and so on and so on. You know, at the core, when you take away the labels, economics is economics. It doesn't matter. The principles, the core principles are the same. So there are the core principles that you need to respect. And then, of course, there's the space for innovation that you enterprise and innovation that you allow yourself. Yeah. So I do think we need a great deal of policy enterprise, and much of the enterprise that the Boko administration needs right now is around, in the first instance, fixing the investment climate. Secondly, crowding private sector funding, even into development. I mean, if Mauritania can build a $30 billion $30 billion energy plant, that's bigger than the Botswana economy. Ours is a $20 billion economy.
Yeah, GDP.
Yeah. Mauritania has done it. They are debt poor.
With a weaker economic fundamentals.
Very weak economy. They're doing it. Obviously, the money is coming from somewhere. It's not just loans. No.
And the business case must be robust.
The business case must be robust. So they have figured out how to get private sector money into that project. The business case is robust, as you say, and they figured out how to get it in there. Ethiopia has done it with rail. Transformative stuff. Kenya has done it. I don't know whether it's from Nairobi to Mombasa or from somewhere else, but they've done it. And they can tell you what the impact is. They can give you the metrics, So that's the way we have to start thinking here. How do we crowd private money into development projects? How do we develop service models that allow the private sector to do things where it can? I was having a discussion with Nancy before you arrived, and she was horrified.
My wife, yeah.
Yes, about the idea of privatizing education. I wouldn't call it privatization per se. I think we've got to appreciate that education, much like health, these two are not only services. They are also industries. Allow private money to flow into education where it can. Allow private money to flow into health. You can have very good public education and very good public health coexisting with very good private education and private health. In fact, one of the ways to relieve a tight fiscus of pressure is to allow the private sector to carry part of the burden. Because what the private sector does is take your children away from public school, take my children away from public school, and leave a little more resources available for
enrollment even to improve. Yeah.
Exactly. So they've got to think long and hard about service delivery models that will work for the environment we are in. But above all, they've got to get government to work, because government is not working. So getting government to work as it should must be a top priority for the government. It's a mammoth task. But
and when you say to work, you mean these reforms, making sure these reforms happen, and ensure that the environment for investment is conducive.
Absolutely.
All this dashboard stuff, that's what you're referring to.
Absolutely. Crucial. The schools getting the results that we should get, and all health, everything. The government just has to work. Otherwise, we are toast. We're toast.
Yeah. Now, thanks very much. I mean, that's quite insightful. Now, I want us to talk to we're all worried, as I talked to you before you came to the podcast, the Msadi Moholo in Matinari, the youth who are unemployed. Now, obviously, this is this despair time to say, what is the hope of me getting a job when the climate is like this?
Yes.
The public servant that we are talking about who's sitting and saying, chish, should be chucked out. So how do you communicate to them in terms of readiness for this current situation?
Well, My first instinct would be to say there is hope. Nothing about the state our economy is in is immutable. Things can change. And of course, everything depends on what the anchor, which is government, does. If the comrades in charge of the economy do their bit, and they do it with honesty, the right focus, the right discipline, there is hope that things will change. We'll also need a lot of luck. We are here, we've come as far as we've come partly because of luck, the fortuitous discovery of diamonds and all that and so on. And there are green shoots here and there. As you know, copper is making a comeback. I think 2020, copper was almost nowhere. Now copper is at 10 billion. And we are looking at doubling production. I mean, the two big mines
in the coming years, yes, Komagawi
and that other one. They're doubling. BCL is coming up. And of course, there are other minerals that Botswana is blessed with. It may take a little bit of time for those to come on stream. But there's hope there. But for the immediate future, we really need the government to get the basics right. Let's stop making all these promises of more money. When you give old people 1,400, that's not performance. You've not created value. Performance is not about redistribution. Performance fundamentally is about creating value, growing the cake, as the Americans will say, and then you can worry about who gets what of this cake. The cake right now is small and is shrinking. Those with a claim on the cake are increasing in number. The population is growing. The demands on the economy are growing. So really, we have to prioritize the economy. If we do the reforms that we have, if we get the reforms around doing business right, we will give ourselves a fighting chance of getting investment. And it's not just foreign investment, it's also domestic investment. Local investors also need a good environment.
And incentives as well.
Absolutely, and incentives. So really that's where we are. How do we get the environment right so that money starts flowing into the economy? Because right now, there is too little money getting into the economy. Some of the money is withheld by government because it can't pay suppliers, which means suppliers can't pay others, and so on and so on and so on. So we must get the reforms right. We must stabilize government finances, get the government to work really, because the government is the central cog in an economy. It's more important than people imagine. And I will sit here and tell you that the politicians are more important for the economy than the economists, because they are the people who make the decisions. The economists will say their bit, and they say their bit. I'm very certain that there is substantial discord between the economists at the Ministry of Finance and elsewhere in government, and others and other spheres of government. And that gap has to be narrowed.
You've said a couple of times, and let me just challenge you on it. You said government is the central cog. And I kept on imagining, what about the rest of the private sector and other active sectors that should be actively? I mean, the common message that we hear from the leaders currently is that we are in this together.
Yes,
and play your part. And but from a philosophical perspective, there is the the aspect of a development state, that we are still in the, and I want you to just recap, or why are you emphasizing the state so much from a classical economics perspective? Do you think that's where we are as a country, where it plays such a central role?
It does, because the state is a regulator at the end of the day. It's there, is a custodian of the rules that we all play on the basis of. It's a facilitator. It has enormous powers. It's the only stakeholder in the economy that has the power of coercion. It can force others to do things,
It's got leverage.
It's got leverage, plenty of leverage. But that leverage also allows it to pull others in. That's why I agree with them 100% when they say we are in this together. It is the responsibility of the state to help all these others, private sector, civil society, including the trade unions, academia, and so on. It's the responsibility of the state to get all these other players to play their role optimally. With 4,000 Pula, they are not doing it. They've spooked business. Business right now is worried. I mean, okay, sheepishly, people might say, why don't we do it in 4 years? Why not 2,500 and this, and so on? But you see, they are trying to get along. They know that the fundamentals don't support that. Yes, you're at 1,500. You have 34.4% unemployment on the broader definition, 38.2% amongst the youth. Where do you get the idea that you can take this economy to 4,000 from 1.5? So there are a lot of things that the government has to do. And one of them is just plain listening with intent. Sometimes we forget that it's actually business that gets society to work. Sometimes people forget. It's business. This is where value is created. Government doesn't create value. Government lives off creators of value. Government is extractive in the broader scheme of things. It lives off others. So we really have to begin to appreciate that the better wages that we want, the stronger social protection that we crave, all that will come only if business succeeds and succeeds big time in Botswana. There's no two ways about it. Of course, in the whole process, you can worry about economic justice, which is what government ought to do. When Botswana prospers, is it only capital, the owners of capital that prosper? Or do we lift all boats, as Americans will say? So, government is the central core because it determines the rules of the game. It defines the climate, but it's got to figure out how to get all others in. Business will come to the table if the government does things right. I need to see a division of labor that plays to the strengths of the key players in the economy. Boko is a wonderful salesman. He has the tools to be a wonderful salesman. My wish is that he could stick to salesmanship. Not that he should be detached from thinking because he has a brain also. But he should allow others the room to take care of the mechanics of building this economy.
The doing part.
And then, of course, he's got to push everybody hard so that that investment can come. I don't think it will come in 3 years, as he says, but we can begin to see it coming.
Maybe by that time, the lights will be on.
Absolutely.
Not fully.
Absolutely. Because right now, the most important thing is to restore hope that a better future is around the corner, not too far.
Yeah.
It's around the corner.
Yeah.
And that's what he has to do.
Awesome. I think as we close, I think you're giving hope to our audience that it's not all lost.
Absolutely.
The economy has not collapsed.
It hasn't.
I don't know whether we are we are teetering on the verge of,
but we are
not there.
Yeah.
Because, a bit of the natural diamonds are still, flowing through despite all the stockpiling and things like that. And we, like you said, we are still within the borders of debt. We still, there's a bit of room there. And I think the big thing is the reforms so that we can attract investors.
Absolutely.
And then because this country's got so much goodwill.
Yes.
I mean, you've traveled, I've traveled.
Absolutely.
People say such good things and they get disappointed with the red tape, the permits, the simple things. I mean, I've just applied because I lost my title deed for one of our properties. I'm given 5 months. Someone has said, you're going to wait for 6. I mean, it's the same thing that you have a copy there. I just want an original. Why does it take 6-7 months?
So long. Why is it taking forever to digitalize?
Yeah.
Why does it take so long to digitalize?
Thank you so much. Yeah, but before you end, we always end with a book. And, you got, junior economists at the university. You got others who, from a GrowthWell podcast, that they're learning a lot. And some of them wait for the book to say, from your reading and everything, which book would you say a very good orientation on economics for a general reader, or any book that you read it and it's like, wow. What a book.
Wow. It's funny. It's funny because for quite a while, I haven't read one that has gripped my attention the way Why Nations Fail.
Oh, okay.
You've read it?
I've read it, yeah. Why Nations Fail, yeah.
Why Nations Fail. It stays with me. It's funny. I actually bought 2 copies. I wasn't. I thought I had lost one.
Yeah.
And I bought another one. But it's a difficult book.
It's quite technical. You're right.
For a non-specialist, it's a difficult book. But I think it for as far as political economy goes, that's the one book I will recommend any time of day for anyone who is interested in development. That's the book I'll recommend.
Yeah.
I do read
James Robinson and Darren
Acemoglu.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful book. Of course, there are a few others. I have a very bad memory. Written by Joseph Stiglitz. There are 2 others written by Joseph Stiglitz. One of them references Botswana. So if people are interested in reading about globalization, I think the title is Globalization and Its Discontents.
Okay.
By Joseph Stiglitz. Another very interesting book. Very interesting.
I'm gonna get that one.
He's a Nobel laureate.
Yeah, I know. He's
a Nobel laureate.
On economics.
Wasn't so successful at policy, but as an academic economist, I think he towers above.
Lots of, I think even Keith mentioned him as well. You guys eat from him.
Yeah, he's I think there was a time when he was the most cited economist in the world. But he had a very bad spell at the World Bank, unfortunately. When he tried to take his ideas to the policy environment, he wasn't so successful. But
Great
globalization and its discontents is another I would recommend.
Okay. Just as we end, I'm just remembering an extract from the book, Why Nations Fail, which really hit me. Even in the book, it's good. I'm still doing the old fashion of highlighting. Yes. Where they talked about how France, UK, and America made it. And they give examples of France became one of the top economies after the French Revolution when the extractives, the elite were taken down and governance was democratized. Similarly, with the UK, after the 1688 Glorious Revolution, when democracy and the rule of the few. And I'm just relating to what you are saying, that once you get a country like Botswana, where now you get the elites benefiting at the expense of the many, then now the journey is just going to become longer.
Absolutely.
And longer and longer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's also another part where, is there a river between Mexico or is just a border between Mexico and the USA?
I think it's just a border, yeah.
It's a border. I think the place, anyway, I forget the name, I can't pronounce it properly. But you see, the communities are basically the same. Mexicans. Others, Bago siding Mexico.
On the American side, yeah.
Life is really tough. On the other side, you've got Ba America. The communities are thriving, the economy is thriving. And they make the point, Asimoglu and Robinson, that the difference here is institutions. On one side, you've got institutions that work. There was a time when Botswana was referred to within Africa as the place where things work. Things used to work here, at least in the minds of those who were comparing us with the rest of Africa. But I think it's fair to say we've now been welcomed, to Africa.
Into another club.
Absolutely. We've joined the club. Things no longer work that well in this country. So institutions. We don't need strong men, we need strong institutions that work. Service-oriented institutions. Because the institutions also mediate our competing interests.
They broker.
Yes. The small man has no chance where institutions are failing. The big guys will always win. But where institutions fail, the small man has absolutely no chance at all. Yeah.
Great stuff, Sennye. You are getting into the intellectual game now. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
There we go with GrowthWell. I hope you enjoyed this. A really interesting discussion. And I like that towards the end. At the beginning, it was sounding like doom and gloom. But towards the end, we are showing that, Puru Gaisa Harelu yet. But obviously, we are really teetering on the edge. And he's a lot of suggestions around the reforms that are required, the quality of leadership in terms of the focus. And I hope that also the assurance to you as an individual, your Moturong in the public service or whatever, that things can turn around if we put our heads together and actually focus. So thank you very much. And please remember to subscribe and enjoy the session. Thanks. Bye.